Hello preschoolers, I sure do miss you. This book is called What Comes in a Shell, and we were going to start studying about the ocean and seashells and all the kind of animals that live in the ocean, and then go on a field trip to see some ocean animals. But since we can't, I'm making this video so that you can at least learn a little bit about some shells. This says, what comes in a shell? What comes in a shell? A crab comes in a shell. And I have some crab shells right here. A big one and one that's a little bit smaller. And this is what it looks like on the bottom side. Most of the crab is gone. This is just the shell part. And right here is kind of where the eyes would come out. Just like you can see the eyes right there. A lobster does too. We eat crabs and lobster a lot, particularly when you go to a seafood restaurant. I wonder if any of you have ever eaten crab or lobster. I really like to eat crab, and my husband really likes to eat lobster. A shrimp comes in a shell. Some of you may have eaten shrimp. This is one that we eat most often. They're just a little animal that lives in the ocean. A barnacle does too. These are also small shells. The barnacle is right there inside, and they come out when there's food available and grab it and come back in. And I have a example of some barnacles here stuck to a bigger shell. And some of them are empty, and some of them still have the little animal inside. And then here is a really big barnacle. And they always stick to something. This has been pried off of wherever it was stuck to. And the animal is no longer in this shell. A scallop comes in a shell. We eat scallops as well. The scallop has two parts that open and close, and the animal is inside there. And they use the shell to protect themselves. All these animals do use the shells to protect themselves. So here's just one half of some scallops. Here's a really pretty orange one. Then here's a pink one, and you can see the two parts to that one is still together. The animal's not in there though, but that's the two shells together. A snail comes in a shell too. This is what a snail looks like in the ocean, and I have a snail shell here, and look at the bottom of that. It's pretty cool looking and feels cool too. It's bumpy. And the animal would come out of here and eat and then hide back in there when it wants to be safe. Here's a different one that's white, but then has some color inside. And here's a little one. It's brown with a little purple middle. It looks very similar on the back side. A mussel comes in a shell. We also eat mussels, and they come in a two-part shell. Here you can see that two parts. They are open, so you can kind of see the inside too. The animal is gone. Here's just half of a mussel shell. So you can see those look very similar to the pictures. A clam does too. Some of you might have eaten clam chowder. That's a soup. Here are some examples of clam shells, and they come in that two-part, and they can close and be safe inside, or they can open up and get food and water in, or food when they need it in. Let the seawater go through. A conch comes in a shell. This is one of my favorite kinds of shells because they just come in so many pretty colors and designs. And so I'm going to show you several of those. Here's one with zigzags or mountains almost on it design. This one looks a lot like a castle, I think. And it's got a very shiny, smooth orange spot there. Here's another one with some stripes. And here's one that's very pokey, got a lot of pokes or points to it. And it's pink inside. And then this one is really fancy. It's got ridges and then little designs, almost as if it's been drawn on. And then that's what it looks like on the inside. And then finally, an oyster comes in a shell. And we eat oysters too. They have kind of a big, fancy shell, or big, look at this big oyster shell I have. Kind of strange shapes oysters come in. And sometimes you can find a pearl inside an oyster. So when the oysters open up to get food, they have two parts too. Sometimes a piece of sand gets in there, and a piece of sand is scratchy. So they'll start to put a smooth coating on it. And if they keep putting more and more coatings on it, it turns into a pearl. And we like pearls because we can use them to make necklaces and jewelry. Sometimes the pearls are nice and round like this one, and other pearls come out in different shapes like this. But that's where we get pearls from. You should ask your mom if she has any jewelry with pearls in them. Anyway, that's a little bit about some of the shells that we can find in the ocean.